Hizmet's interfaith activities are an important educational tool which lead to more understanding and respect and cooperation between people of very different religious faith traditions. My name is Dr. Bob Rice. I've been a Presbyterian pastor, or you might say a Christian imam, for almost 40 years now. I've served congregations in 4 different places, and over the last 17 years I've led a worshiping community in Norman, Oklahoma. I'm married to my wife Beverly. We've been married for 43 years, and we have 3 daughters, 3 grown daughters, and now 6 grandchildren. I got to know about the Hizmet movement through the Institute for Interfaith Dialogue at Oklahoma City, and it's now called the Dialogue Institute. The Institute offers an annual interfaith banquet. It sponsors conferences such as one that I remember well, Denouncing Violence in the Name of God, in which they brought in nationally and internationally known speakers. They sponsor interfaith panels, which I've been fortunate enough to participate in, and also they have regular trips to Turkey, and I've had the opportunity to go on 2 of these trips, one with a group of educators and a second with a group of religious leaders. I've been very positively impressed by everyone that I've met that's been involved in the Hizmet movement. In fact, what I find is the values that they express resonate with my own convictions as a Presbyterian Christian. The people that I've encountered that have been a part of the Hizmet movement have been motivated by a deep personal faith which has exuded graciousness and hospitality. True religious motivation, in my estimation, is never egocentric, but is always looking at how one serves God and follows God by showing compassion and mercy and care for other people. It seems to me that persons who only think of the world in terms of egocentric motivation might not be able to comprehend this deep religious motivation that is not egocentric. Mr. Gülen's call for respect for others and the love for others and the people that he has inspired have been quite impressive to me. We're told in our Christian scripture that we can know people by their fruits, by the product of their work and what they do. And while I do not know Mr. Gülen personally and have read not too many of his writings, the people that I've experienced firsthand who've been inspired by him and the work that they do have caused me to have great admiration for him as a person. Mr. Gülen and the Hizmet movements call for dialogue and the respect of others, particularly people of other religious traditions, rank really high on my list of contributing to the common good. But also his and the movement's involvement in education and the many schools that they established, some of which I was able to visit while I was in Turkey, as well as their attempt to alleviate poverty, are also ranked really highly on contributing to the common good. In my view, the Hizmet movement represents, by its respect for others and compassion for others, as well as its call for dialogue, its emphasis on education and on alleviating poverty, represents the very best of Islam. Unfortunately, some Muslims and all too many Christians feel that their job is to make the rest of the world like them, to make the rest of the world Christian or Muslim, instead of understanding that their religion calls them to make Muslims or Christians for the world in service to the world. And as I have experienced the Hizmet movement, it's not about making the world Muslim, but about making Muslims for the world and in service to the world. And this, I think, represents the best of any religion, to make the world more like the world that God intended by showing mercy and compassion and love to others. In my experience, the Hizmet movement compares very well to other movements in the world which seek to better the life of ordinary people. For example, the Habitat for Humanity, which seeks to build houses for the poor, Bread for the World, which seeks to feed the hungry, both of which have Christian origins. The Hizmet movement, however, to me feels a little bit more like the civil rights movement of the 60s, in which a loosely knit group of folks who heard and were inspired by prophetic voices such as the Christian pastor Dr. Martin Luther King, and sought to make the world more like the world that God intended. And I think I see that in the Hizmet movement. Hizmet's interfaith activities is the way that I first became aware of the Hizmet movement. I've been fortunate enough to be able to participate in several interfaith panels that have been sponsored by the Institute of Dialogue in Oklahoma City. Unfortunately, there's so much ignorance in our country, in the United States at least, about other religions as well as about our own religious tradition. Hizmet's interfaith activities are an important educational tool which lead to more understanding and respect and cooperation between people of very different religious faith traditions. I've had the opportunity to visit a number of Hizmet schools while I was traveling in Turkey, and met with the administrators, talked with teachers and students in the classroom. And what I heard and what I saw resonated very deeply with me as a Presbyterian Christian and my own tradition's emphasis on public education, not just on religious education, but public education, which is outside of the religious institution, which is never held hostage by religious dogma. What I experienced was schools that were not so much concerned about making people Muslim or making them into a certain type of religious person, but were concerned about educating young people to be productive and creative citizens, world citizens, and this was very impressive to me. Turkey is an amazingly beautiful country, and it has, in fact, deep roots in my own Christian tradition. What I appreciated most about being hosted by the Hizmet movement or Hizmet members in Turkey was that I was not only invited to come to a beautiful and historic place, which would be reason enough to go to Turkey, but I was also invited to be a part of a conversation, a dialogue with people in Turkey. And this, it seems to me, was one of the high points of my travels there that the Hizmet movement provided. It became not just a trip to a place, but a dialogue and a conversation with people and new friends. I have a number of incidences that come to mind in terms of my travels over there, but two probably stand out. One was when the group I was with was in Catania. We were invited by a group of physicians there to have lunch with them, and over lunch I struck up a conversation with the physician that was sitting across from me, and he told me about his daughter who was getting ready to graduate from high school. She wanted to go to the United States and spend a year there after graduation, but he confessed that he and his wife were not so sure that they wanted her to go. They feared for her safety because of all the violence they perceived was in the United States. And I remembered when he said that, that just before I left for Turkey, one of the members of my congregation told me just as I was going, now, be careful. We're tempted, it seems to me, to fear different people, places, and religions. But on the occasion of a shared meal and a conversation, we're likely to discover that people all over the world are very similar to us, that we have similar concerns and dreams and values. And that even our differences are not to be feared, but to be celebrated.
A lot of times our interactions are superficial, and I think Gülen leads us into a deeper understanding, a deeper relationship with each other, and so I have nothing but admiration and respect for him. And
I'm very impressed with the movement as a movement for peace, a reconciliation between people who come from different ethnicities or different religions.